universe trembled at the mere thought of their clash. On one side, a god of quantum reality, a being who saw past, present, and future as a single unbroken stream, Dr. Manhattan. On the other, a primordial, eldritch force that predated even the gods, the architect of unstoppable destruction, Cyttorak. Their battle was not fate, it was inevitability. Far beyond the multiverse's edge, the crimson cosmos pulsed like a bleeding heart, its reality separate from all conventional existence. Here, the laws of physics meant nothing, as Cyttorak's will alone dictated form and function. Within his boundless domain, he watched, amused, as another reality bled into his own. A ripple, small at first, became a wave of cascading blue energy. Dr. Manhattan materialized. His featureless face betrayed no emotion, his body glowing faintly against eternal red backdrop. The very act of entering the crimson cosmos should have been impossible. Yet here he stood, as though stepping into another room. Cyttorak's booming laughter echoed through the void. The very fabric of his realm vibrated with his amusement. A mortal dares to enter my dominion? No, not a mortal. Something else entirely, he mused, his voice thick with contempt. Tell me, Blue Spectre, do you seek power? Or do you wish to be unmade? Dr. Manhattan floated forward, unbothered. His voice was calm, measured, detached. I am not here to seek anything, nor do I fear unmaking. I exist where I must. I am here because I have already been here before. Cyttorak narrowed his glowing, fiery eyes. This one spoke as if time itself were nothing but a thread he could weave at will, a foolish notion. Here, in his realm, Cyttorak was time, space, and power incarnate. You do not understand where you stand, being of light, Cyttorak growled. He extended a clawed hand, and immediately reality twisted. The skies became rivers of molten magic. The ground beneath them solidified into living obsidian, pulsating like veins of a god. The crimson cosmos bent to his will, an extension of his being. Most beings would have crumbled under such manipulation, their essence shattered, scattered into non-existence. But Dr. Manhattan remained unchanged. He lifted his hand, fingers spreading apart like a maestro conducting an unseen orchestra. Blue waves of energy surged outward, stabilizing the chaos around him. The river solidified. The sky returned to its unnatural stillness. Cyttorak's amusement faded. Interesting. Dr. Manhattan observed the changes, his expression impassive. You control this space, but you are bound to it. A paradox of your own making. You call yourself limitless, yet you are confined to a singular domain, incapable of true freedom. Cyttorak's red aura flared with intensity. You believe yourself beyond limitation? Fool, you are but a speck of dust given form. Even gods kneel before me. With a snap of his fingers, Cyttorak reached through the very fabric of the multiverse. 1,000 juggernauts, pulled from different realities, emerged in a synchronized roar. Each one was an embodiment of Cyttorak's strength, their forms brimming with raw, limitless power. The crimson cosmos raged. They attacked. Dr. Manhattan did not move. A single blink. Instantly, the juggernauts froze in place, their bodies trapped in a quantum state of uncertainty, neither moving nor remaining still. Some of them began to dissolve, their atomic structures breaking apart in slow, deliberate disintegration. Others reversed in time, returning to the moment before they existed. Cyttorak scowled. This one did not fight with brute force, nor with conventional magic. He wove existence itself. The Eldritch god clenched his fist, and suddenly, Dr. Manhattan felt something he had not felt in decades. Resistance. A massive red rune formed around him, pulsating with anti-reality energy. The crimson bands of Cyttorak, chains capable of binding even the most divine beings, snapped around Manhattan's limbs, locking him in place. Enough of your games, Cyttorak thundered. Let us see if you can undo power older than stars. Dr. Manhattan looked at his bound form. His mind stretched across time. He had seen past, present, and future simultaneously. Yet, here, in this moment, something was different. The future was blank. His eyes glowed brighter. For the first time, he could not see the outcome. Cyttorak leaned in. Ah, you feel it now, don't you? The absence of your precious foresight. In my realm, I am not bound by your physics. Here, I dictate what is and what isn't. Manhattan remains silent, a test, a true challenge. For the first time in his existence, Dr. Manhattan did not know what came next. And in the silence of the Crimson Cosmos, Cyttorak smiled. The crimson bands of Cyttorak burned with eldritch power, sinking into Dr. Manhattan's glowing blue form. The vastness of his being, once unrestricted by time and space, now trembled beneath a force older than the multiverse itself. For the first time in his infinite existence, he felt true resistance. He remained calm, his mind stretched across the quantum sea of probabilities, searching for a path forward. In every other battle, he had been untouchable. He had been disintegrated, scattered across existence. But each time, he had returned. Rebuilding himself was effortless. This time, something was different. Dr. Manhattan blinked. For the first time, he saw nothing beyond this moment. Cyttorak towered over his captive, his monstrous red form radiating pure, unchecked power. His voice shook the very fabric of reality. I see the fear in you now. Dr. Manhattan tilted his head slightly. Fear is a human emotion. I abandoned it long ago. Cyttorak sneered. Then why do your atoms tremble? Manhattan looked down. His form was flickering. His hand, once solid and eternal, faded in and out like a dying ember in the wind. He was unraveling. Slowly, irrevocably. Cyttorak grinned. You thought yourself beyond destruction, didn't you? But here in my domain, you are a concept I choose to erase. Manhattan raised his glowing hands. A surge of blue light pulsed outward, his will reshaping the quantum field around them. Matter and energy collapsed into nothingness, reforming at a command. The Crimson Cosmos should have shifted. It should have bent, adapted, succumbed. It didn't. The space around them remained unchanged. Unaffected, Dr. Manhattan paused. His calculations were wrong. Cyttorak's voice boomed with amusement. Did you really believe your petty tricks would work on me? I am not bound by your pathetic understanding of physics. Here, you are nothing but a trespasser in a kingdom of true power. The crimson bands tightened. For the first time in decades, Dr. Manhattan felt pain. Manhattan closed his eyes. He expanded his consciousness, reaching beyond the Crimson Cosmos into the vastness of the multiverse. He had been everywhere, seen everything. He had rewritten existence itself. He was not a prisoner of time. Except now he was a prisoner. Cyttorak sensed his attempt and laughed. You cannot escape. This is not merely a prison. It is your grave. Dr. Manhattan remained still. He analyzed the crimson bands, tracing their eldritch structure. They did not operate on conventional energy fields. They were more than restraints. They were a declaration of absolute dominance, crafted from Cyttorak's will. He had never faced something like this before. His form flickered again. No, not flickering. Shrinking. His very essence was being compressed, funneled into the infinite void of the Crimson Cosmos. Cyttorak raised a massive clawed hand. With a flick of his fingers, the fundamental particles of Dr. Manhattan's body began to separate. Dr. Manhattan felt it. His atomic bonds, his quantum state, everything that defined him was being unraveled. He had reassembled himself countless times. But this was different. There was nothing to reassemble into. The Crimson Cosmos had no space for him. No probability. No future. Cyttorak grinned, towering over him like an executioner. You always knew everything, didn't you? The deity mocked. Tell me, Manhattan, did you see this coming? Dr. Manhattan blinked again. For the first time in eternity, he did not know. Dr. Manhattan remained calm, even as his luminous form began breaking apart. He reached into time itself, into the raw quantum foundation of all things, trying to reconstruct himself from the past. But Cyttorak had severed him from time. The past was gone. The future was non-existent. Cyttorak's burning red eyes glowed with triumph. You were never a god. You were never eternal. You were nothing more than an anomaly waiting to be corrected. Manhattan closed his eyes. He saw a fragment of his life, His birth, his rebirth, the moment he abandoned humanity, the moment he became something more. And now, this moment, the last moment. The crimson bands pulsed one final time, and Dr. Manhattan was no more. The crimson cosmos settled. Cyttorak stood alone. Where Dr. Manhattan had been, there was nothing, not even a trace of energy. No scattered atoms, no lingering consciousness, not even memory. Cyttorak smirked. Another so-called god had fallen. He turned away, stepping back onto his throne of infinite destruction. All things bowed before Cyttorak. He laughed, and the sound rumbled through eternity. The multiverse moved on, unaware that one of its greatest minds had just been erased.